arriving plane led to a frenzied, almost panicked roar from the crowd. It didn't matter where the plane was arriving from. Every thobe-clad man and burqa-clad woman gathered in the scorching afternoon sun knew that sooner or later one of the planes would be the one. Every few minutes, as a PIA, Air Arabia, Etihad, Iran Air, or another airline's jet began its descent, the crowd began screaming and waving small, makeshift white flags with a black dot in the middle. In the distant azure, a white jumbo jet appeared. Inside the chartered Airbus A321, the row of seats were mostly empty. The first 6 rows had exactly one person per row, all Pakistani, all male. They were part of a security detail and wore military uniforms. In the overhead compartments, automatic weapons were stored. As the plane descended, each man moved to the window at the end of the row and tried to get a glimpse of the crowd they knew would be waiting. A few rows behind the security detail, more men were dispersed. They were all campaign staff members. There were a dozen men, mostly in suits, a few in ties. Some of them chatted quietly, while others typed on laptops. Several pored over newspapers. More than 25 rows back, separated by row after row of empty seats, 2 men sat quietly across the aisle from each other in the last row. Both men were dressed in bishts. The man on the left, Atta El-Kayab, had on a dark blue bisht with white piping. His beard was flecked with gray. His eyes darted about nervously, belied somewhat by the infectious smile on his wrinkled, kindly face. The other man, in the aisle seat on the right-hand row, wore a plain white bisht. On the chest was a black circle the size of a tennis ball, similar to the flags being waved by the waiting Pakistanis on the ground below. This man also had a beard, though his was completely white. He was taller than his companion, his dark skin deeply creased and covered in hideous black moles. His blind eyes were covered by large black lens glasses. He did not smile. This man was Omar El-Kayab. "We're going to land soon," said Atta. He reached his hand across the aisle and patted the back of El-Kayab's hand. "I'm told there will be a crowd." El-Kayab took his right hand and moved it on top of his brother's hand, gently patting it, but he said nothing. "It's been a long flight, Omar," said Atta. "Tell me, Atta, will you miss Paris?" said El-Kayab quietly. El-Kayab reached up and removed his glasses. Beneath, the sight was grotesque. The eyeballs were balls of murky green and rolled around in the sockets like fish eyes. The skin around both sockets was badly scarred despite the more than 60 years since the accident, the fire that had destroyed Omar El-Kayab's vision forever. "Yes, I will," said Atta, looking away from his brother's face and trying to smile. "I'll miss the food, but I'm happy to go, Imam." "I'm glad to hear it." "Will you miss Paris, Omar?" "No." He reached his hand up and stroked his white beard. "The French are a vile filth. But I will miss the madrasa. I will miss the boys. I will miss the moment." "The moment?" "There is a moment when it happens," said El-Kayab. "When the education of a young boy truly begins." "What do you mean?" "There is a moment when a boy accepts jihad for the first time. When Allah turns a young boy's blood into an angry fever. I cannot see it in their eyes, of course, but I've learned to recognize it in their voices. Once it happens, there is nothing that can bring them back. It's unstoppable. That moment, for me, is like nirvana. That is what I will miss the most." The plane arced left as the rumble of the landing gear being lowered could be heard. "But instead of a few hundred boys, brother, you now have a nation of more than 200 million, said Atta. "You have been elected president of Pakistan." A smile creased El-Kayab's lips. He nodded his head up and down while stroking his beard.